Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Christine, and in today's video, we're going to be walking through 10 things that make your makes more fancy. So some of you know that my whole first career was in fashion. So I got to manage retail stores on Rodeo Drive, Madison Avenue, Soho in New York, Palm Beach, Las Vegas. So lots of different places all around the US, and for brands like Emilio Pucci, which I loved, such a beautiful Italian fashion brand. I worked for Alexis Bitar, which is a really cool kind of 80s sort of gritty jewelry designer based out of Brooklyn, New York. Mulberry from the UK. So I got to work for some really, really cool kind of upmarket brands. And one of the biggest benefits, it wasn't all, all rosy and beautiful, but there were definitely perks. And one of the biggest perks was the clothes. So for almost all of the brands I worked for, I would get a clothing allowance as part of my salary, because when you're working in the stores or around wholesale accounts or whatever, they want you to represent the brand. So I do still have a few really special pieces that I'm going to be pulling from to show some of the details, as well as just some other ideas from my own makes and own just creativity. Okay, so number one is labels. So it's so easy to have your own labels made. You can get like as little as even 20 labels. I've ordered my own for Lindy Lindy, my slow fashion brand. And I got these at a company called Wonder Label. I'll drop the link below. You can get small quantities. You can make them in any size, any color. So I wanted to just show you some examples of different labels from some clothes that I have. So this is just kind of a medium size Emilio Pucci label. And then we go even smaller with this. This is a really cute Celine jacket. So Emilio Pucci and Celine were all under the same kind of umbrella. So we shared offices with the Celine folks. So we often got invited to sample sales. So I also have quite a few Celine pieces in my wardrobe. But I love their labels because they're small and really kind of delicate, and they're this almost like a natural kind of I don't know, it's a natural color as opposed to being stark white. So kind of a smaller label. This is a leather vest by Celine also that has that same kind of small label. I really like it. I think it's really an elegant label size, and with just, you can even do just your first name, like Christine, as the label. It's your own clothes, so you could do whatever. And then on a completely different note is one of my leather jackets by Emilio Pucci, which I just love, in this blue color. And look at this label. It's massive, massive. So you could go all the way to the other end of the spectrum with your labels and go really big. So if having your own custom labels is not quite in the cards yet, there are tons of now, especially now, really cool labels that you can just buy. I'm sure you've seen them around. I picked up these ones by Katie and the Machine. I think I may have gotten these from Minerva, and they say worth the effort. These are very similar in size to the first Emilio Pucci label. It's just a really good, kind of goes in every kind of garment size. I can't remember how much these were, but they're not crazy expensive, and it's just such a fun little detail. These by So Anonymous in the UK, and they're so cute. They say Material Girl. And so these I picked up, I think, also at Minerva, and they're just a really, really fun little detail. There's also the labels that you can sew in on the side seams or in different pockets or other areas of your garment that are really, really fun. I also did these little silk care labels for Lindy Lindy, as well as the kind of the mid-size label. Okay, number 2 on the list is lining. So these are, I have 2 of the same jacket from Emilio Pucci. These are it's just a good classic leather jacket with a belt. And I love the detail of the lining. So this is a place print. This is actually the kind of the emblem, the logo. It's like their aristocratic emblem for Emilio Pucci, but I love the fancy schmancy lining. And then the blue has it as well, with the place print there. So I actually kind of took a similar idea and did a lining in my latest Great Jones jacket that I'm going to show you. So I actually took a similar idea, not quite as fancy, but this is my latest Great Jones jacket that I made out of this fun green tweed. And I did a lining, kind of a fun lining that I think is a little bit unexpected. Maybe in a jacket like this, you might expect a green lining or something like that. But I kind of took the same spirit and added a printed lining. And I think this is something that is so fun and makes a little more fancy. Number 3 on the list is fancy bias tape. So this is just a little Emilio Pucci black silk blouse, but check out the bias tape finish. It's a print. And I love the contrast. It's something that only you see when you're wearing it. It doesn't show at all from the back or anywhere from the outside of the garment, but the inside, you just have this really beautiful little detail. You have it all along the back as well as the armholes. And it's just such a pretty detail that I really, really love. And so I kind of carried a similar type of detail through in one of my Great Jones jackets with my contrasting bias tape. Although this one does show on the outside, it still has a similar flare. And I definitely want to keep this in mind because I think these kind of inside details, like I did here, are really special and fancy for us as opposed to people necessarily on the outside. I also have this really beautiful cashmere cardigan from a brand called Say Cashmere that has this beautiful leather trim all along the front. And I think using leather bias tape trim, or I guess it wouldn't necessarily be on the bias with the leather, but a trim using leather would be really, really fancy. Next up is a detail that I did in a special outfit that I made for a friend's wedding that I attended last November, and that is fancy zippers. So why use a regular old zipper if you have the option to go fancy? So these are just metal zippers that I had in my stash actually. And when I kind of put it up next to the fabric, I thought that is so cool. And I think it kind of gives this sort of traditional print fabric just a little tiny bit of edginess. And I just love the idea of a contrasting fun zipper. I know there are all kinds of colored zippers with like lace kind of edging and everything. So I think I really easily could have just done an invisible zipper in this skirt and the dress, but why not use a fancy one? Okay, next up is a detail that I actually learned from a seamstress that I am getting to work with my brand, Lindy Blindy. So she's been helping me sew up some of the items that I'm selling in my shop. And she's a local lady. I absolutely love her. And she taught me this new detail, not new, new to me detail for our belt loops. So this is this is actually my Carnegie robe pattern, one that I sell in my shop, the pattern. But we decided to start doing these beautiful little, it's like a knotted, I think it might actually be a crochet stitch for the belt loops instead of sewing, actual fabric. And it gets that way, it's a little bit clunky. And so for me, these new style belt loops are so much more fancy and they're elegant and you just don't even see them on the side seam. So this is my next tip, fancy belt loops. Okay, the next tip is something that Emilio Pucci specifically does really, really well, and that is place print. So this is where you place your print. So if you're cutting out a printed fabric, you place your pattern really specifically so that the pattern, the print of the fabric, is part of your garment design. I suppose we could say the jacket that I'm wearing was place printed, because I definitely did place the design on this jacket exactly where I wanted it to be part of the design. And Emilio Pucci does these really classic button-up shirts a lot of times, because they're known for their beautiful prints. They're using their prints in a really intentional way of how they're cutting it. It's kind of like this jacket. This is like place printed. And then I also kind of did it with this vest. The print is placed very intentionally in kind of a designer way, I would say. This was a scarf that I kind of cycled into my Great Jones vest. I will definitely pop some photos up of other better examples that I have, but I think place printing is such a luxurious detail, especially if you come across a really beautiful print. Why not make it part of your fancy design? Okay, next up is top stitching. So this one may seem kind of basic, but I think using top stitching in different ways can be really, really fancy and different and kind of artistic. So this is one of my favorite Worcester jackets that's been with me for, I think, like 3 seasons now. And I did this fun top stitching along the yoke. And I just love it. It's my favorite part of this jacket. It gives it just some kind of specialness. I don't know, can't really describe it. I also did just a little, I cut and sewed the neckband and added some top stitching there. So really fun way to get some different looks. This is not quilted or anything. I just literally top stitched the single layer of the fabric and then sewed it all together. The other way I love to use top stitching for kind of a fancy, maybe more professional look, I guess I would say, is on my knits. So this is my Sullivan sweatshirt, and along the neckline, I've done just about 1/8 of an inch top stitch on the garment side. So kind of holding down the seam allowance with a top stitch, but it also just gives it a nice kind of finished look on the neckbands. Okie doke. Next is bound seams. So I'm going to show you my favorite Celine jacket, because I absolutely love the way they've done the interior seams of this jacket. It might be kind of hard to see on camera because of the color, but they've literally done black bound seams on this entire jacket. So here we go. They've done the hood seams, they've done the neck, the raglan. It's a raglan style sleeve. The side seams, it has these big pockets in the front. So everything inside is bound with like a black, just a really nice black cotton. And I actually showed this technique in my latest video about my Great Jones jacket, how I did these interior seams. So it's the exact same technique as the Celine with the really cool black binding. In mine, I did neon. Maybe that's more my personal style. But it's this really amazing interior. And again, it's something that really only you're going to see, or maybe you're going to see it, it's in your closet, you kind of see it. It's just such a fancy, fancy detail. Rather than serger seams, why not use these fancy bound seams? Next up on the list is lace. So if we've been friends for a while, you probably know that I do love lace. I love making loungewear and lingerie and using a lot of lace. And this is actually an example of an Emilio Pucci knit top that uses lace right in the front. So not just for lingerie or homeware, but also for our ready to wear. I just think this use of a little bit of lace to create a V-neck effect with this top, as well as around the neck, is such a luxurious, fancy detail that is a good example of using lace an everyday kind of, or maybe this would be like a date night or kind of a special top, or maybe under a suit, for just a really great example of how to use lace in a really special way. I also love using lace in my loungewear. So these are some little shorts that I did the lace edging, little romper that I just love that I did kind of the lace insets on. This is a Liberty of London print. You may have seen this one before. I love, love, love this one. And other various. This is a little cardigan that has the galloon lace all along the edges, and I just think it makes such a fancy, luxurious one. This is more of like a summer piece for me. So I love using lace. I think it's such a really pretty, definitely a fancy detail. Okay, and last but not least are buttons. So I think buttons are maybe kind of an overlooked area or detail that can make our makes super, super fancy. So on this same black lace top, we have these beautiful little gold ball buttons along the back of the neckline. You may even have a vintage button collection. I picked up some really cool, well-priced buttons at Holly Lobby when I was in the US just a few months back. So using different combinations of different sizes, different colors, different textures, really having fun with your buttons, I think can make such a difference and make your makes really, really fancy. Okay, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope maybe it inspired some new ideas or refreshed some ideas for your next make. As always, you can shop my patterns at sewingandthecity.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.